So it's been a year since I completed my biggest automotive challenge to date. I built my dream car from a bare shell. I've always wanted a BMW E30 with a V8 swap and I did it. I built one. So why hasn't there been an upload on this car for 11 months? Well, let's just say this video has been long anticipated. Stick with me over the next 40 minutes of how I made my dream car even more of a dream. So we are up north. We're actually 20 minutes away from where my mum lives. We're actually in St Helens and we've come down here to Blossom Automotive and we've got the E30. So around 6 months ago I bought a livery. I got Blossom Automotive made us a livery for the E30. It's a bit windy. I'm going to come in here. They made us a livery for the E30 and they said, who's going to install it? I said, it's only a few stickers. I'll install it. And then I totally f***ed up. And in my defence, a lot of rappers messaged me and said, that's actually quite a hard job. Like, it's chrome and you've got a massive wide body. And even when I pulled up, they instantly looked at the wide body and said, okay, we can see where you struggled. If there's one person to install it, it's the people who make the livery themselves, right?
Yeah.
Well, is that actually a tough job to do the chrome over that?
I think the chrome's hard as it is, so anything over like an overarch like that is going to be horrible. Yeah. We didn't realise how big of an overarch it actually is as well.
Yeah, it's pretty big. It's a plus 70 mil, yeah. Do you know when people say spacer on a spacer is bad?
Yeah.
I've got spacer on a spacer on a spacer, and then the wheel. Because I'm too much of a tight arsehole to buy some decent spicy wheels for the back. So we're getting the livery installed. So the livery that we got from Blossom about 6 months ago, we're actually getting the livery installed. I've been dying to do this because I'm not a big fan of the yellow, okay? I've said this multiple times. So I wanted to, hopefully this will hide the yellow because we've got chrome, blue and other things like that. And this is actually important, not just for me wanting to whatever. It's actually important from a business point as well because I've had a lot of companies help me build this car, and a part of that deal was I run their stickers on the car. So I need to actually get this done in terms of a business standpoint as well, because right now I'm not fulfilling my end of the deal. So two good reasons why we're doing this today. So I'm very, very excited. I fucked up. Blossom hopefully aren't going to fuck up. I'm excited to do this. So the first thing we have to do is wipe down the entire car with some alcohol things, and we've got to remove the old stickers which I had on there temporarily, which is my business True Rally, who arranges driving holidays through Europe. Now liveries are usually really expensive when you get them custom done, so Blossom actually have livery packs which have different designs and you can customise little bits, making it cheap but also having a sick livery at the end. It's a perfect in-between. So we're going to get Kelsey on camera and he's going to tell you a little bit about his business.
We're Blossom Automotive. We started about 2 years ago. Mainly started just as like stickers and like a couple of little accessories and stuff, and then we ventured out into kind of t-shirts and merchandise and stuff. And then we wanted to do something that was like sick on the side of the car, and we just decided to start doing liveries. So we did a couple of liveries for a couple of friends because we had the printers and we had the cutters and stuff, and Veronica being very artsy, she was able to do like a really cool design that kind of no one had ever seen properly before. People kind of started asking for liveries and wanted more liveries doing, so like it's got a bit of traction here. So then we started doing the DIY packs because people want to do things on the cheap and they want to try and do it as much as they can themselves. Like project cars, people want to do everything themselves. So we were like, what if we made a kit that was dead easy for someone to fit, except for Lee?
That's what I was just gonna say.
So we started making livery packs. They kind of blew up a little bit and they've gone really well. So.
Yeah, because obviously, I mean, I remember looking for like liveries for like most of my cars, and then you'd have to like message these companies. And they're like, oh, we can make you one, it's going to cost like $2,000. And I was like, what? You were like the only people who like did it as a pack, which you could just buy. It was cheap in relation to everything else. Yeah. And you could still customize it. So it's here basically. So yeah, so they got like a few baselines and then you can add things from there and then change all the colouring. So you can add stars, you can add things all over. So it's basically like a customizable, but still kind of like in bulk so you can get it cheap. Yeah. So, and you can choose all the colours. So I chose chrome with a blue shadow and I chose the stars, and you can add more things as well. And for what other people are doing in the market, it's an absolute bargain.
Me and my friends are waiting in line.
So Veronica's just done the main part of this side, and now she's on the other side. And me and Kelsey were like two kids let loose with a bunch of fucking stickers. No, it looks good though. So we've done this side. This side is all done. We've trying to like put stickers in a place that doesn't look stupid is actually way harder than you think. It's like really hard. I think we've done a good job though. So we don't want to go too crazy with the stars, but we have gone a little bit crazy with the stars. But nothing that doesn't look silly. I think it looks really, really, really. Well, I think it looks fucking sick. I honestly, absolutely love it. We've got the bit down here. Obviously, you can't see much, quite tight away, but I do have to go now because it's my auntie's birthday. So these guys are very graciously doing the other side. Probably tonight, maybe finish it off on the weekend. But you think you can have it done tonight?
Yeah, I reckon it'll be done tonight.
Yeah. So I have to go, but we're going to come back in a few minutes and we're going to pull the car outside, well, tomorrow or whatever. I'm going to get some proper shots, but for now, I need to go and get drunk. So it is the next morning. Not too hungover, which is good news. They actually managed to finish it last night. So we're just opening the shutters and we'll pull it out here and cut to the cinematic. Now there's one more person to add to the livery, which is going to lead on to the next part of the video very well, but for now let's show you the E30. Now with the car looking at this good, there is one big elephant in the room, and it's still how bad this car actually drives. I did build this car from scratch and I've never had an E30, so I was expecting some teething issues, but the way this car drives is honestly atrocious. We've got the car looking professional. Now the last thing we need to do is actually get the car driving professionally, driving well. And I've got a bunch of stuff in front of me right now which we're going to fit today, and I'm super excited because this has almost waited like a year because I didn't want to do one thing without doing the whole lot because it was just silly. So I've got the whole lot in front of me and we're going to go over everything that I've got and what this is hopefully going to achieve. Now the E30 drives terrible. I mean, absolutely terrible. And I know a lot of people moan about that or complain, oh, my car doesn't drive very nice. I can probably interview two people on camera now which will most definitely corroborate what I'm saying. I remember giving the keys to this to Yogi, the drift teacher, and he got out of it and he said, that is the worst car I have ever driven. It's so snappy, it's so grippy, it's so unsmooth. And I've tried over the whole year to get it driving better. I've tried to bring out some of the caster by getting some adjustable lollipops. I've actually re-drilled the strut tower. We've done loads, tried to make it feel a lot better and remove some of the caster. And it still drives like shit.
I'm just not a big fan of E30s. So.
No, you did say this, didn't you?
But I just didn't like the way it drove.
Well, how did it drive?
Like a forklift.
We're just going to get rid of the E30 front end because I've tried so hard to make it drive good and it doesn't, and we're going to get an E36 full front end. So in front of us here is everything you need to convert the front of your E30 to an E36. But we've got some very juicy goodies in here involved as well. Now, considering I was going to an E36 front end, I actually asked a lot of the E36 Drift Pro guys, what are you running on the front? Mainly Zach Parker. I spoke a lot to Zach Parker, who's a very good driver, and he runs the Gravity Performance lock kit. So what do we get? We've got a Gravity Performance lock kit. So this here is the Gravity Performance lock kit. You've got some tubular arms, which I believe are 50mm extended. You actually have some adjustable lollipops, which will actually help you reduce or increase caster. You have extended tie rods, and you actually have this here, which is basically like a mount, which bolts to the bottom of the hub, and it stops you having to cut and weld your hub. I feel like when you're actually cutting and welding your hub, You know, it's basically just done by some guy in his garage. So you're introducing potential factors to cause detrimental effects. I've wanted to go for a full lock kit, which everything is machined properly and, you know, everything's in spec. So the Gravity Performance lock kit was the one I got massively recommended to, and we've got it. And it's an absolute bargain for what you get. You get all of these pieces and it's like £500, which is absolutely crazy. So we've got the E36 Gravity Performance lock kit. We've actually got some new Gaz Gold shocks. I've worked with Gaz and I know Gaz so well. They are the coolest people. I've had them on everything. We've currently got Gaz shocks on the E30. We've got them on a load of other cars as well. Gaz are incredible. They build everything from complete scratch in their workshop in Essex, and it's all hand done, hand lathed, hand built. They're beautiful bit of kit. You can even opt for different spring rates, you can opt for different damping, you can opt for different rebound, different bump, and they'll build you a shock to exactly what you want. So I've got the Gaz Gold twin adjustable, so we've got bump and rebound adjustable, and I've gone for around a 500 kilogram spring on there. So these are fully built custom for me, and they build every shock custom for you as well. Now with the Gravity Performance lock kit, you actually get all the new solid ball joints as well and everything like this. So we're going to be installing this today, and just to finish it off, we've actually got some PBS brake pads. You know how much I like PBS pads. I've run them in every single car. They are the best brake pad you can buy, and I'm genuinely not joking. Every single person I've recommended this come back and say, oh my god, the brakes are amazing. So we've got some PBS pads front and rear, and to go with that we actually have some E36 hubs, wheel bearings and brake discs, brake calipers as well. So we're going to be upgrading the brakes while we're at it. And while we're upgrading the brakes, we're going to be putting in a new brake cylinder for the pedal box, and we're going to be doing a new bias bar as well, because I feel like my front brakes don't work very well at all, and I think it's coming down to either the cylinder in the car is not very good or the brake bias isn't working properly. So we've got all of this stuff to install. That's going to give us a full 36 front end. So let's get started. Now the good thing about this is that we've actually got spacer adapters on here to turn it into a 5 stud. So luckily, even though we're going E36, the wheels are still going to fit. We just converted this from a 4 stud to a 5 stud using the spacer adapters. And you can physically see the difference in the calipers. The calipers are like so much bigger, and I'm hoping that with the new brake cylinder and everything, it will brake a lot better. So yeah, we're going to be changing the whole of the front end of the E30, and everything's going to be going to an E36, and that's going to be all the brakes as well. So first of all, we're going to take the brake lines off, the calipers off, and the discs off, and then we can get access to the wheel bearings as well. This is where I believe one of my driving issues has come from. As you can see here, the hub, it's the knuckle where you attach the trap rod is turned back on itself. Now that's because the E30 stubs as standard, the trap rod is basically right here. Now to give more steering lock to a car, what you do is you shorten that knuckle. So let's say here is your knuckle and here's your turning point. If it's over here like most cars are, it's going to not turn the knuckle as much. But if you shorten that distance, then you're going to get a big turning angle. And that's in theory what they do to add more lock to a car. When they say cut and weld the knuckle, that's when you just shorten it. Now the E30s from standard, they're already really short. So when I took this to the company who did it, I said, how are you going to do that? Because you can't shorten it. He says, well, we can make it work. And they turn it back on themselves. Now, I might be wrong, I'm not an engineer or whatever, but here's my theory on this and why this is potentially making my E30 drive pretty bad. Again, I might be totally wrong, but from a physics point of view, it just doesn't really make sense like that. So let me show you. Now, because this is turned back on itself instead of straight, so for example, if you see this one, right, this is the steering knuckle here. So you can see it's straight to the hub, right? Now this is turned back on itself. Does that not mean that that's going to require less force to pull than to push it? Because it's not on an equal angle to the hub. Like for example, this one, pulling and pushing is going to be the same amount of force because you're, you know, perpendicular to the hub, where this is further back. So does that not mean that it's going to require more force to push it than to pull it, because it's already kind of started that movement and it's back? I might be wrong, but in my head that does make sense. So we're getting rid of this because that's just the only thing you can do with the E30s. Luckily on this we don't even have to cut it because we've got that stuff from Gravity Performance. So this will just bolt onto the bottom of the hub and give us that turning effect. So we're going to take all this off. Now, I'm not saying that this is done wrong, and I'm not saying that this is the root cause of my issue, but every time I look at it, I just can't see it from a physics point of view of that it's a good idea. Again, this isn't wrong because there's no other way you can do this to an E30 hub, but I think this is a big reason of why people just go E36. Now, the suspension setup on BMWs is super easy. There's one bolt for the trap rod and there's one bolt for the lone ball joint. The rest of that is just a coilover attached to the top of the strut, and that's it. Now, as you can see here on the E30, like many other old cars, the hub and the strut actually come as one unit welded together, which makes it a pain to get coilovers for, but luckily Gaz did it for me. Now, in an attempt to reduce the caster on the car, I actually got these custom lollipops made, and you can actually bring the arm forward and back with these in a hope to reduce some of the caster. Now, there's nothing wrong with these, but I'm just going to put the whole kit on as one. Now, after you get a lock kit like this, you are going to have tons more steering angle and your wheels are going to be pushed out a lot further. So you do usually have to get extended trap rods to compensate for this. So luckily these come in the kit, so all we're going to have to do is just replace them. Now, one of the best things about this Gravity Performance lock kit is you don't need to send off your hubs to get cut and welded. It actually comes with a hub adapter. You bolt it onto the bottom of your hub and it gives you somewhere else to bolt on the trap rod end, thus shorting the throw from the trap rod end without chopping up your knuckles. Now, you do have to build up the rose joints and the ball joints yourself with the kit. It is pretty self-explanatory, but if you are a little bit of a paranoid person like me, I did message Gravity and they did send me some pictures of where all these washers are meant to go, so that was very handy. Now, I did actually get some camber and caster adjusting solid top mounts for my E30 coilovers, so I messaged Gaz and I said, is there a way I can still reuse these? And they actually sent me out another spacer so I could just change over the top mount to my new E30 struts. Now, I actually managed to get these E36 hubs off a guy called Adam, who I bought a lot of parts off the E30, and they're actually a good cost. I think they were like 60 quid or something like that for the E36 hubs with the wheel bearings. So now it's actually all starting to come together. Now, the whole kit actually comes with new rose joints on every joint as well, so even just the cost of just replacing those bad ball joints on your standard arms, this kit is an absolute bargain for what you get with it. The annoying thing now is that this is an E36 track rod, this is an E30 tie rod, and that's an E46 steering rack. So I'm sat there thinking, what the hell, what do I need? So I've just rang Adam, the guy who sold us the hubs, and he was saying that all the E36, E46 and E30 inner thread to the steering rack is the same, but the E30 has a different tie rod. Now, the E36 and E46 tie rod threads are the same, so they'll both fit into there. But he was saying it's probably best to get an E46 as the tie rods are longer, and not only that, they're actually vented on the thread to stop pressure build up inside the rack. So we've ordered some E46 tie rods and they're going to be here very soon. So I was going to take the heat shield off because it looks ugly, you don't really need it, and it was getting a little bit in the way of the steering rose joint. But to take it off, you either have to take the wheel bearing off or you have to carefully cut it off with a grinder. Now, when I get the grinder in my hands, there's nothing careful about it. I am, with great wisdom, I am bolting it back up. I ain't faffing around today. That is what I like to call a tomorrow job, which is never going to get done tomorrow. But while we're waiting for our tie rod to turn up, it is time to start building up the front brakes. Now, the front brakes on this car have been absolutely awful. I think it's a combination of the pedal box and the old E30 calipers, so I'm very excited to put on this whole new brake setup as well. So these are the calipers which I got sent with the hubs. Adam sent me them, he didn't really charge me for them. This one's actually in okay condition. This one is missing an outer seal, and it's I have cleaned this up on the wire wheel, but the piston's totally pitted. I could put this in, I could probably get away with it, and I wouldn't really notice, as I don't really do much road driving. so you probably wouldn't really notice it, but that's probably killed this seal somewhere inside being that pitted, and it's not really worth putting them on, bleeding it all up, going on a drift day, and then realise that it's leaking brake fluid everywhere. So you can actually you can buy rebuild kits really cheap. I've just looked online, this is like 30 quid. You get the pistons, you get the seals, and you get new sliders and blah blah blah. It's like 30 quid. So I'm going to leave the brakes off for now. And I'm going to order a caliper rebuild kit. We're going to rebuild those calipers before we put them back on the car, because there's just no point risking it. Well, I've rang GSF, and they actually have some E46 tie rods in, and they were like 28 quid for a pair, which is pretty decent. So I've just taken the tie rods off now. The only good thing about this is, because obviously everything's pretty much brand new on this car, everything comes off nice and easily, which is nice, because usually, I mean, I'm used to work on that fucking Subaru where everything's a 3-hour job no matter what. Taking a bolt is off a 3-hour job. So we've got the tie rods off here. Somebody is actually buying all the parts that we're taking off as well. So that's like these tie rods, the new trap rods, the new wheel bearings, the coilovers, the arms, the whole, like, you know, everything. So she's taking that, which is nice, a little bit of money in my pocket. So I'm hoping that these tie rods turn up nice and quick, because we might actually get this finished. Oh no, the calipers. Oh well. I have to wait for the rebuild kit, but most of it should be done. The thing is, once you've done it once, you can just speed run through the next side. So I've already got the arms off and the coilover and everything, so this is ready just for the arms to go back on now as well. But I'm just going to wait for those tie rods. It's probably going to be easy to tighten the tie rods. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm sending it because I'm not waiting, because it could be a couple hours or so. So I always like to film the first side, because the first side is always more difficult and you get a little bit more drama. So I have installed the second side off camera, and it took me a fraction of the time it took me to do the first. And you can actually see the standard camber there on the front, and that's just how far the wheel's been pushed out from these extended arms. So I might even have to try to remove some of the camber using my adjustable top mounts. We're going to turn our attention to the pedal box, which is in here, because we're going to put in a new bias bar, and we're also going to be putting a new cylinder as well, because my front brakes barely work at all. So I think that's a combination of, obviously, the calipers and the discs that we were using were tiny, but it shouldn't really be that, because it should still brake, but it just doesn't stop. So I think either the cylinder that we put in there is crap, or the bias bar is not doing its job either, and it's just sending the fluid to the back where there's even smaller brakes. So let's take it all apart and let's change this cylinder, and see if we can get the new bias bar in as well. So my pedal box is down here. Now a pedal box, that's going to be pushing a load of fluid out. So a pedal box basically works with, you've got 3 cylinders. I'm going to take this off and you'll see. You've got 3 pedals, and you've got cylinders. So we've got our own separate cylinder for the clutch, our own separate cylinder for the front brakes, and our own separate cylinder for the rear brakes. And how you control between the front and the rear, you have a bias bar. So we're going to take this off. I'm going to get my phone, it's quite hard to film in here. I'm going to take this off and we'll show you how everything works. So these are the 3 cylinders. Now this controls the clutch, this controls the front brakes, and this one controls the rear brakes, and this is like a pressure sensor. So when I press this, my brake lights come on. Now, there is a bias bar at the back and it goes through the brake, but it's really not in good condition. The threads are ruined, so we're going to get that off and change it. But also we need to change this cylinder here. This is for the front one, and I believe this might not be very good internally, because it just doesn't hardly send any power to the front brakes. So something might be going on in the front of it. So we're going to change this, and I've got a new one. You can pick these up on eBay for around 40 quid or so. Now, it was actually quite hard to film in here, so I just got this done without filming it, but it's just a case of undoing the bolts to the pedal box and then replacing the cylinder. I did have to bleed the brakes, but we had to do that anyway because I was changing the calipers. And the bias bar was actually part of the pedal box, so I couldn't just change that part. So instead, I took my time and tried to free it up. Okay. It was completely seized, so I reckon, so what's been happening is I've been thinking I'm full front brake, but realistically I'm probably half or maybe even more towards the rear. So I've actually been pressing the brake and it's not been doing the front one full. I've just cracked it off. I've had to get 2 nuts on the end, and Jesus, they were tight, honestly. So it's just gone bang, and it's just It's just braked off. So I ordered this rebuild kit on eBay yesterday, and I've actually used these loads. They're on eBay, just the cheap ones, but they're actually really good. I've rebuilt probably around 10 calipers in my life using this company's kit, and I ordered them yesterday at 4 o'clock on eBay, and they've turned up today, which is amazing. So we're going to rebuild the front calipers off the E36. So you can see the difference between the piston that has had a seal, or the caliper that has had a seal, and the caliper that hasn't. This is cleaned up as well. It was totally rusty. You can see this is actually quite good. So you could easily reuse this piston. That's not a problem at all. There's no pitting, no scoring, no rust on it at all. But we've obviously got the kit, so we're going to rebuild both of them. Now this caliper would have just been good to throw back in the car, but we're rebuilding one, so we may as well rebuild the other. Now I don't know any garages that will actually rebuild a caliper for you. They'll only offer you to buy a new one, which sometimes can be around £200 or £300. Now this rebuild kit cost me 30 quid, so having the balls to just do this will save you a lot of money. Now these kits come with absolutely everything that you need, all the seals and the pistons as well, and it'll even come with like new dust covers and stuff. Now don't get me wrong, it can be a bit fiddly, but it is a lot easier and cheaper than buying a new caliper. So once you've cleaned out everywhere with a pick or a screwdriver, there's an inner seal which you have to just pop into the groove, and there's an outer seal which goes around the piston and sits into another groove in the caliper. Now there's multiple different ways to do this, but I actually like sitting that groove into the caliper first and then just trying to find a way to squeeze the piston in the middle of it. It is quite tricky, but you'll find a way that works. And once you've got your calipers rebuilt, you can come back to the car and you can install your new PBS brake pads. I've got the Pro Race ones, and these are a really stiff, sticky, hard compound. They do throw a lot of brake dust out, but they are incredible for stopping power. And it's a case of putting on your new freshly rebuilt caliper. In the kit as well, they actually come with new bleed nipples, which is awesome because we all know, or we've all dealt with old crappy bleed nipples, and you definitely don't want them snapping in the caliper. So new bleed nipples, absolute bargain as well. Now when I was speaking to Adam yesterday, who gives me a load of BMW parts, he was saying if you've got the E46 rack, you're best off getting the E46 tie rods. One, because they're longer, but two, they actually have a vent in the threads which stops the pressure being built up inside the steering rack, which I thought, what the hell? What does that mean? Anyway, I've come to see this morning the tie rods. If my camera wants to say hello to the tie rod, hello tie rod, hello. You can see the vents in the threads and on the actual tie rod's end that allow the pressure to get out. Engineering things. So let's put these tie rods on, and then I think we're pretty much done. We can bleed the brakes and give it an eye alignment. That's about right. See if it drives any better. So when you're putting tie rods or trap rods on and you're doing somewhat of an alignment, you want to make sure that your rack is centered so it's even in the middle. So to do that, you want to turn it all the way to the left and count all the turns it goes to full lock right. Half it, and then that is the center of the rack. Well, basically 3 turns, so that's dead simple. So we're going to do 1 turn, half, and that's going to be the center of the rack. So always put your tie rods on there and always align your car there as well. And then with our rack centered, we can actually install our adjustable trap rod ends. Now with the rack centered as well, we're going to get it somewhat close to where we want it, but it is quite difficult because I've got new ball joints and new rose joints on everything, so nothing wants to move by hand. And after a quick sweep up, it's time to drop the car and see exactly how much lock we've got with our new Gravity Performance lock kit. That is too low. That is way too much camber. Like, that's way too much camber. It's especially too low on this side. That is well too low. Don't think I got my measurements right, lads. This side's not too bad, but this side's way too fucking low, so that needs to be jacked up quick. Okay, so I've just sorted the ride height and I'm at a place where I'm happy with. Now, I already know this is going to drive 10 times better by looking at one thing. And we're going to come here and we're going to look where the wheel is, and the wheel is so far back in the arch. Now what that means is all that caster that we had has been removed. If you remember, the wheel was over here at the front and the angle of the strut was like this, and that's what affects your caster. And caster basically in drifting means how snappy it's going to feel in the front, how much it wants to rotate back to straight. And I always said this car feels like it just rotates so quick that it's too quick. It just rotates so fast, it's so hard to control. And a lot of people have kits that try to remove caster from the E30s. And we've just put the E36 front end on, and look at where the wheel is sitting back here, that's amazing, because the strut is so much straighter than at an angle like this. So it's not going to keep pushing the wheels forward, which I'm actually excited to drive it now. I'm a bit worried because I feel like this might hit this now, but we can introduce a little bit more caster with our adjustable lollipops at the back. We can push the caster, bring the caster in a little bit if we want to. Okay, I'm going to see if we've got brakes. Bear in mind, they're not bedded in, so it's not going to be really harsh because I've literally just put them on. And actually, I'm not even brake cleaning the discs. I'll do that. Oh my god, we have front brakes. That is so good. Honestly, you don't understand how horrible it's been this year not having front brakes. It's been really hard to like drift with speed, knowing I can't left foot or I can't brake. It's been really hard to like fast entries and stuff without the foot brake, and it helps so much getting into a corner when you can use the foot brake. You slow yourself down, set the car, and then go. But I've had to just rely on the handbrake. It's been awful. Oh my god, we've got front brakes. But not everything is good news. We're hitting over here, man. So we have a big problem. I'm thinking, we've not got much lock, and I've come on the side, and the wheel is hitting the wheel well. Like, badly hitting the wheel well. So the wheel's really far back. Well, it looks like there's really only one logical solution. Proper R4. Okay, holy shit, that's better. Holy shit. Holy shit, that is a lot of lock. Holy fucking shit. Okay, so this is the car on the floor, and it is not hitting. Get my hand down the back. We're going to have to run it quite high because I don't want to take any more than that off. Honestly, let me show you what I'm have to do. Now, I think I'm underplaying how much we had to use the sledgehammer. We use it that much that we actually had to weld the inner arch and the sill back together. Now, there was one more thing that I wanted to do before taking on a drift day and seeing if it drove any better. I wanted to change the steering rack. This is an E46 purple tag, and as you can see, one side is leaking. Now, this potentially might be causing a heavy steering feel, as I might be losing a lot of pressure inside the rack. So I bought a low mileage, 50,000 miles purple tag steering rack, and we're going to replace it, and it's time to take it on a drift day to see if all of this stress has been worth it. So we came down to Santa Pod, and it's going to be my first time driving the car this year, and I'm so excited to drive it with all the new bits. And I didn't even do one corner. I didn't even have time to get my camera out. On the first corner, this happened. I went onto the track, I clutch kicked into a pothole at Santa Pod, and it snapped my drive shaft in half. The first corner. So it's time to go home. Today we've got to go to Silverstones. We're drifting tomorrow. But yeah, this was our first drift taxi of the year, and it was the first time I actually got to drive the E30 with our new upgrade. Now, I love doing the drift taxis. I'm very lucky to do with the science of drifting. I get invited to do all the shows and the taxis, and I absolutely love it. So I was super excited to do the day and super excited to see how the E30 performs as well. and straight out the bat the car was like a different car. It was so fun to drive, so predictable, so fast, so much smoother, but it still kept that raw feel of what makes the E30 so aggressive to drive. It was snappy, it was quick to rotate, but it was just totally predictable, and it was an insane experience driving the E30, and it's totally transformed what I think of the car as well. So it is the end of the day. I did want to film like an intro and do a little bit more video of the driving, but we're there to do a job at the end of the day, and it was just so busy all day. There was so many people that needed rides, so I've not managed to film that much, but I have got a little bit. The car is like a different car. Whatever it was, whether it's the Gravity Performance Lockwood that we put on, whether it was a combination of that and the steering rack was gone, whatever it was, it's fixed. Like, it drives amazingly. And one of the best things is having a foot brake, like having the PBS brakes on there now with the bigger cylinder and the bigger calipers. I have a foot brake, and the foot brake works, and this whole time I've not been driving without a foot brake, and it's horrible because you can't slow yourself down. If you can't slow yourself down fast enough, you can't go as fast. And today we were flying, like it was unbelievable. You know, we were tandem with like 800-900 horsepower cars. The people coming up to me saying that you just seem so fast. I think it's a combination of being on the sim as well so much. Either way, I'm really happy with how the day has gone. And today there's only a few people that are actually allowed to take the children out, and I was allowed to do that today. I got promoted, so so that was nice, knowing that, you know, you can be one of the people who is just a very trusted driver. So unbelievable day. The car's been insane, and I've actually fell back in love with it. Now, next time we've got to go back to that Rustbox S14. It's been an amazing day. Thanks everyone who's contributed to this video in terms of the companies that we're working with, Blossom, Gravity, PBS. Thanks so much, guys. You've transformed the car in every single way, and I'm very happy with everything. So since I've recently acquired my S14, I was unsure of the fate of the E30 when the S14 was done. But after this whole experience, I can't get rid of it. I genuinely think that I'm not going to get a similar driving experience with any other car. It's unbelievable. I love it. It looks like we're going to be keeping the E30 and the S14.